Another win for video game archivists and Nintendo dabbers alike, as Pokemon 2000 Adventure, the previously lost media Pokemon game, has been fully restored to the Internet Archive thanks to the Chads over at Did You Know Gaming and their contacts.
Yup, some time ago, Did You Know Gaming made a video about the game, and one of the original devs of the game saw the video. He promptly then got in contact with them and sent over all the files, explaining that Nintendo took down the game essentially for being too good of a game.
Welcome to NecroNews, the show where we go over the hottest gaming news from the last week. And boy, is there a lot of news.
I will never complain about having not enough news again. Anyway, subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with the latest gaming news, new releases, and anything else you may have missed.
And with that said, let's just jump right into it.
Sony has been hacked, and pretty badly, if what the group Ransom.vc claims is true.
The ransom group claims to have infiltrated all of Sony's systems, stating that they will sell the stolen data or release everything on September 28th, whichever comes first. Well, it's now October 2nd, and there has been no leak as far as we can tell. So did someone end up buying the data?
It's actually kind of hard to say. Funnily enough, though, this entire debacle reads like an episode of Mr. Robot. A fellow epic hacker man going by the name Major Nelson wrote the following on Breach forums. You journalists believe the ransomware crew for their lies. You're far too gullible. You should be ashamed. And he has claimed that he was the one who hacked Sony.
Major Nelson also called Ransom.vc scammers who are just trying to scam you and chase influence. Then he leaked the following stolen data, which he claims contained, among other things, a lot of credentials for online systems, Sonar Cube, Creators Cloud, Sony certificates, a device emulator for generating licenses, QA/SOP security, and incident response policies. Weirdly enough though, the data is the exact same files that was posted by Ransom.vc. So who was actually responsible for the hack? Was it a hack? Was it just a leak? We're unsure.
Sony, so far, has only responded with, "We are currently investigating the situation and we have no further comment at this time."
But that's not the only thing going on with Sony. Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan has announced his retirement in March 2024.
Like him or hate him, he has been one of the more prominent figures in gaming. However, I.E and, as a result, Jim Ryan are single-handedly responsible for the Sony global standard, which has censored a ton of weeb games that we all know and love.
Sony is also responsible for our next story. It seems that the collectible statue company Gaming Heads has been ordered to destroy all their PlayStation statues by Sony themselves. So Gaming Heads claims anyway.
The meat of the story is that after over 10 years of being a business partner, PlayStation states that Gaming Heads and their products were no longer business priorities, and so they were ordered to destroy everything. That's even orders that were about to be shipped, despite Sony having already collected all the royalty payments on these products. However, something doesn't sit right with us.
Gaming Head's open letter to Sony calls for people to message Sony's commercial partnership representative, Judy Ward, about the now cancelled products and ask for refunds. They also went on to slander the company by saying they are no longer sure if PlayStation is for the players.
Finally, a look at the comments have people dogging on Gaming Heads for making people wait for years for their statues and saying that they have many one-star reviews. So both of us are pretty sure that the full story is not being told and that there's a whole other side to this story.
But we'd like to open this discussion to you guys. Who do you think is right? Sony? Gaming Heads? The hacker man? Who's the good guy in the story? Let us know in the comments down below. This lawsuit is about Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. When it was originally released in 2005, it was an alright game but was blatantly unfinished with a lot of cut content.
According to the Star Wars wiki, there were notes of over 147 pieces of cut content, and that barely scratches the surface. Though nowadays PC players are able to restore majority of that content with the restored content mod. Now let's skip 18 years to the future to 2023 and join Asper Media and their publisher Saber Interactive.
Last year, Esper and Saber ported the game to the Switch, giving more life to the game. Even better, they announced in the trailer that the restored content mod would be coming as DLC. Everything seemed to be going great. And then they canceled the DLC.
Whether it's because of internal trouble or they didn't see it being worthwhile is unknown. But what is known is that this pissed off a lot of people. According to the lawyer for the plaintiff, Ray Kim, the plaintiff and numerous other consumers were excited about the new content that the defendants claimed was coming soon. In fact, KOTOR sat at the top of Nintendo's eShop rankings. The plaintiff felt completely duped. In fact, the plaintiff did not even play KOTOR after purchasing it, instead choosing to wait until the DLC was released.
Something else to note, when they announced the cancellation of the DLC, Esper offered a consolation prize of free Star Wars game keys. So basically, for the price of an unfinished game, that at one point was even worse than the original version, you can get an actual complete product. That's the Esper seal of quality, folks.
To no one's surprise, the man that posted all of these is a creep.
But not just a regular creep, a stranger danger kind of creep.
On September 24th, a video was released showcasing Discord audio between Alex and a minor, along with Snapchat tests of them talking back and forth.
The audio and text confirmed that YandereDev knew the girl was underage, but continued not just regular conversations, but sexually charged ones, going so far as to saying things like he'd keep any photos of her in secret, and calling the victim hot and funny.
And if you didn't think those were damning enough, YandereDev himself came out to say that everything in the video was true and taken in full context.
The video in question was taken down briefly as it seemed that YandereDev had DMCA'd the video, but is now back up per the victim's request, which I think is important to note as YandereDev had originally convinced the victim to redact their allegations, and the video was posted without the full consent of the victim.
There's currently no legal action being taken, and it doesn't seem like there will be in the future, at least not currently, but since the allegations were made, many people in the Yandere Simulator community have publicly denounced Alex's actions and any further involvement in the game, such as voice actors, asset creators, modders, you name it.
From this statement, it does seem like he still plans on continuing with game development, however. But hopefully this time with less support, because you know, after almost a decade and several controversies, you'd think people would learn to support better games.
Like VTuber Summit, a game made almost entirely by our friend RenAvum for the past 3 years. It's a 2D turn-based RPG featuring over 500 indie VTubers and an incredibly in-depth fighting system, which should not be an RPG Maker game, to be honest. It's out and it's free to download, the link will be in description, and if you want a preview of what the game is like beforehand, we streamed a small portion of it a few days ago, so the link to the VOD will be posted.
A booster, people in the audience may be asking. Are we in the game?
Well, you'll just have to download the game and find out for yourselves. I see the trailer for Hyenas, and it just makes me sad that Lawbreakers sucked.
Did anything ever come from Cliffy B's mysterious investor that he found for Lawbreakers 2?
Oh no.
Shocking. Anyway, Sega-backed developer Creative Assembly are catching L's left and right. After enduring the massive backlash from the Shadows of Change DLC for Total War Warhammer 3, which we covered here, the UK-based studio has now suffered another major setback to their plans. Sega, their parent company, has decided to scrap their Borderlands Payday Lawbreakers clone, Hyenas.
This came out of the blue for most of us, as the game had already entered a closed beta testing period, and a considerable amount of budget was spent on advertising, like showcasing this guy, the Sonic dude with a gun. Remember him?
Hyenas was supposed to be CEA's next big console cross-platform release that isn't related to their Total War series, the first one in almost a decade since the release of their acclaimed Alien Isolation.
In fact, it was important enough for the studio that it spent the better part of 5 years in pre-productions, rumors stating that it was actually in production around the time that Alien Isolation was finishing up its production cycle.
Even with this much development time and resources spent, the reception to the game even prior to the announcement was anything but good.
You want to be a hyena? Take those billionaire plunder ships for all their merch?
Many even going as far as to blame Hyenas' production from withdrawing much needed budget and manpower from Total Warhammer 3's rough and lukewarm release.
It's one of those games that tried to chase a dying trend, but if you want my opinion on it, I bet Creative Assembly is going to get bought completely out by Sega. Especially in the next few years if it keeps going this way, which would be sad, but most likely probable.
A booster? I thought Sega did what the 10 don't.
Shut up.
This next story was brought to our attention by one of our community members, so thank you, Justman.
Man, I didn't think today I'd be talking about a crappy gacha game that I've never heard of before, taking a dump on one of my favorite franchises. But here I am.
How does it feel to have lived long enough to see all of your favorite franchises go down in flames? Feels great.
It's a gacha game. What did you expect? Anyway, this next story is about Devil May Cry Peak of Combat. It was developed by Nebula Joy, a company that has a reputation in China for exploitive labor and abrupt firing of any personnel, and also made the dumpster fire that was Mega Man Dive. For our sanity though, we're just going to focus on Devil May Cry Gacha.
Coming to us from former community member and moderator of Peak of Combat, Baldy, the story is dissected into chapters. We're going to go through them in order, but keep in mind all stories have two sides, so take it with a grain of salt. Chapter 1 is the most toxic era of their Discord server. Staff at the time were incredibly negligent, which allowed a very toxic member to gain prominence. So toxic, in fact, that YandereDev has a lot in common with him.
He would attack users on the server and would try to flirt with women when they appeared on the server, regardless of age. Baldy says many of them were even minors.
The atmosphere and harassment this user brought onto the server was so bad that many women had to pretend to be men so that he wouldn't target them.
Thankfully, the developers finally considered taking action by asking if he wanted to become a moderator since he was famous and active. Luckily, the user laughed at them and rejected their gift. He was finally banned after some time had passed.
Chapter 2 consists of community censorship by the developers of Peak of Combat. At one point in their server's history, a community manager was fired and later banned for talking about getting a job as a CSGO community manager. Now, this may sound like fair play to some, but community members who discussed her ban were directly DM'd by the developers with the message, "Hey yo, I would like to ask you to not discuss the matter about PLC as staff. There were reasons for our actions. I can't tell you anything because it wouldn't look good to talk about company internal business. The mute is justifiable. Thank you for your understanding." It doesn't help their case that the moderators were often required to force users and other moderators to only speak good about the game, muting and banning users with negative comments or feedback about the game. Baldy himself was fired because he said he liked the previous combat system over the new one.
Chapter 3 was about the exploitation of their community managers, who were often told to voluntarily help with things outside their job description. That included things like translating the game into different languages, often without any reward other than a stupid role on the server, and the previously mentioned user censorship.
And finally, Chapter 4. The developers have been using community works and videos without the creators' permission. Some of these were contest entries, and when the creators complained, they got the reply back that they should take into account that their work could be used by the developers. On the topic of contests, Nebula Joy would run events with prizes of merch, Amazon cards, or even cash rewards of at least $500.
Unsurprisingly, these prizes were never distributed to the winners, and the developers repeatedly ignored their messages. While they were not paying the winners, they still used the material as free advertising for their game.
6 months later, the developers washed their hands of the whole contest, seeing that there were no winners for the events because they didn't meet the specified conditions.
If you're a degenerate who likes gacha games, we heavily recommend you stay away from this company. We did heavily summarize the story, so if you want the full details, the link to the story will be down below.
God, even the small news came in like a wrecking ball this past week. You could say it's been a heck of a week for headlines. Hey, huh?
One-off segment.
That was awful. But anyway, we're starting off with the slightly sad news of Hideki Kamiya announcing his departure from the company he co-founded, Platinum Games.
According to Kamiya, he made the decision after a lot of consideration based on my own beliefs, and thanked everyone on Twitter for the messages of support he received after the announcement.
All Japanese, I assume.
No, he speaks English.
I thought he blocked everyone who spoke English.
Well, actually, it's funny that you say that. It's actually kind of unusual seeing him like this on Twitter because of his usual behavior. In fact, he did say on Twitter, "I thought I'd be bullied more because of my usual behavior, but I'm so touched by all the words of support I've received. Thank you so much. As long as I have your support, I'll keep making games."
Godspeed, Kamiya.
Henshin a go-go.
The Screen Actors Guild, not to be confused with the Film Actors Guild, has announced that a strike has been authorized for their members who do physical and voice work for video game companies, the massive 98.32% of guild members voting yes.
That doesn't mean that a strike is now underway, but rather that a strike is looming if game companies don't make a deal that protects their voice talents. These negotiations have been ongoing for almost a year, the previous contract having expired in 2020. The negotiations are seeking for inflation-meeting wages, protections for exploitive uses of AI, and basic safety precautions.
If that last part sounds weird, remember that Sean Schemmel, Goku's English VA, passed out during a recording session of GT. Anyway, the following companies were specifically mentioned in the authorization: Activision Products Inc., Limelight LLC, Disney Character Voices Inc., Electronic Arts Production Inc., Formosa Interactive LLC, Insomniac Games Inc., Epic Games, Take-Two Productions Inc., VoiceWorks Productions Inc., and WB Games Inc. So basically the companies you'd expect it from. Moving on.
This next story has our editor kicking himself for not archiving the footage that he saw with his own eyes. But with it receiving a copyright claim, it seems like this tweet showcasing 2 cutscenes from the 2008 version of Beyond Good and Evil 2 was the real deal.
The leaked footage consisted of 2 cutscenes that were found in the portfolio of former Ubisoft animator Damien Barranco. The footage had a similar style to the 2008 trailer of the game and features the third main character Double H and Paige drinking in the bar. As a necromancer, it's my duty to bring up the dead, and this week we're laughing at the corpse of NFTs, which are widely now considered worthless.
NFTs? More like no thanks. Specifically, we're laughing at Kevin Comadran, who trademarked the name Metabots in 2020 and claimed copyright infringement against Imagineer, the company that owns the Metabots franchise, going so far as to have this on his site. For those who are listening, it says beware of unofficial websites and accounts.
He went beyond that even, as Imagineer were ordered to stop selling Metabots-related video game content in the EU by Alicante Commercial Court in 2021. Imagineer filed a formal objection shortly after and requested the order to be withdrawn. This week they reported their victory in court 2 years later.
And finally, Nvidia's offices in France were raided by antitrust enforcers on the 28th of September, having been authorized by a judge for suspicion of implanting anti-competitive practices in the graphics card sector.
This raid follows a broad inquiry from France's competition authority into the cloud computing sector, which stated concerns about cloud computing companies being able to leverage their computing power into anti-competitive practices. That's a mouthful.
There are no other details at this time, but this sudden event, at least sudden to those outside of Han land, will be something to watch with interest. And who knows? Maybe GPU prices will fall again.
And that's it for the news. We're done. That's it. But where is the Tokyo Game Show, Elle and Booster, you might be asking us.
So, there was nothing. And that's not an exaggeration. It was pretty much all stuff that was previously announced or has since come out. Though there was EDF 6, and that is confirmed to be coming to the West, so that's cool. Anyway, here's the games coming out this week. Disgaea 7's coming out, and it is in fact not censored. Thanks to the guys over at the Play Asia Discord for confirming that for us. You guys rule. And here's our schedule for the week. Elle doesn't want me to tell you what's on the schedule because apparently it changes all the time.
Yep. But if you like what we do here, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like.
A very special thanks to all of our members. You guys make it worth it. And to all of you, thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.